Well, when it comes to hunting, especially if you come from a hunting family like I have, I think I can say fairly confidently that almost everybody will remember their first big game animal. And for me, it was a deer. This is my story. Welcome to the Buick Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Sheldon Marion, and on this podcast, we dive deep into the outdoors. We discuss hunting and fishing techniques, give you tips and tricks, tell stories, and everything in between to help you enjoy the outdoors. This podcast is brought to you by Northbound Gear. Northbound Gear is designed for maneuverability and durability and is made to last through even the toughest of elements. My go-to for their pants is the water resistance adventure pants and their lined waterproof jeans. I've worn them while out ice fishing, crawling through the woods bear hunting, and on the west coast out on the boat. And I even wear them around when I'm having a lazy day at the house. They are that comfortable. They also offer jackets, summer pants, backpacks, and many more. Men's and women's sizes are available, and by partnering with One Tree Planted, you're planting a tree with every purchase. Check them out for yourself at northboundgear.co, and when you use my promo code Sheldon15 at checkout, you'll receive 15% off your order. That's northboundgear.co and promo code Sheldon15. So for me, I grew up in a very hunter-friendly family. Everybody hunts, everybody fishes. Some of us have trapped and all that good stuff, but the majority of us were all just kind of hunting crazy. And for me growing up, I never really cared too much about school, didn't care about what I'm going to be when I grow up. With me, my biggest thing was when can I get my hunting license, my own tags, and hunt by myself and go fishing by myself. And so for me, growing up, getting my first big game animal, and in this case was a deer, was a huge thing for me. For me, I remember I was 10 years old. I think that's the minimum age you can get your hunting license here in BC. And for me, my birthday is in August, and it was always just a couple of days before moose season, all that good stuff. And I want to say I had to wait until after moose season to get my license because in BC we had to take a core course, which is the Conservation Outdoor Recreation Education Program. And for that, it's basically a test to see, it tests your hunting knowledge and all that stuff. So you can get your hunter number card. And once you get your hunter number, then you can get your own hunting license. So for me, I studied that way more than I studied any of like my final exams to graduate, to be honest with you. I knew that book through and through. I knew all my gun safety. There was no way I was going to fail this 2-day course. And I took my course at the Rod and Gun Club in Charlie Lake. I want to say it was fairly late in the year, like kind of September, October-ish kind of area. And man, once as I got that course done and I got that little card, it was just like watching Willy Wonka, when he holds up his golden ticket. For me, that hunter number card was my golden ticket. I could finally get my hunting license. I could finally get my own tags. And I was off to the races. I could not wait. And I don't quite remember how long it took for like the hunter card to come in and for me to get my license and all that stuff. But as soon it came in, we went down to Backcountry when their store was still down on Main Street in Fort St. John there, and walked in, got my license, got my deer tag, and off to the races we went. And I remember it was in November because back then the only mule deer season was November 1st to the 30th or 31st, however many days there are in November, and it had to be 4-point or bigger mule deer. And at that time, a 4-point mule deer around our area, it wasn't like a big thing. There was a lot of deer. Also, back in those days, Dad was actually an operator out in Buick, and the place that he operated in the field, uh, back then, every single farm was like a separate family. Nowadays, there's a handful of families that own kind of a majority of the land out there with a couple of one-offs. But back then, there was Thiessens, Bucherts, Reeds, Giesbricks, a few others that I can't quite remember. Sorry, guys, if you're listening to this. But, back then, Dad kind of knew everybody. And then also we went door to door. And, they're a little bit more lenient when you're introducing a kid to hunting too. So we had permission to hunt, like, not quite every square mile of South Buick, but pretty darn close. Uh, and Dad put in a lot of work with that, but he also made me go with him and knock on doors and ask for permission and all that stuff. We did our homework and, well, not really homework, but we put in the miles and we talked to a lot of people, got a lot of permission from a lot of different guys and women out there. And the place that the one deer was hanging out on, it was just before the South Buick plant. When you come down that road, you kind of come down to a T intersection, and there's a field right at that T intersection. If you keep going down, it'll end up swooping around. You go down to the Blueberry River, or you can hang a left, and that goes towards the South Buick plant, and then a couple of other little wells and batteries that are right in behind there. Well, it's not really batteries, pump jacks and stuff. But for us, we were watching a herd of deer that was just right in the corner, and they were kind of off to the right-hand side. So when we came in there, you could just see over the hill that there was a herd of deer there. So we were able to go down the road, keep going straight. And I remember there was a big mound of dirt. I don't know. I'm pretty sure somebody dug out a dugout and then just piled all the dirt there right beside the road kind of a thing. So we were able to pull the truck up to there, get out, walk up on top of this hill, and then we could just sit there and glass and see the deer that were, I don't know, maybe 200 yards away kind of a thing. So me and Dad, we crawled up there, and we were laying down, and at the time, I can't remember if Dad was remarried or not, but Karen was there with us. And, she's all new to hunting too. When I took my core course, it was me, my brother Blaine, and Karen, my stepmom. We all took it at the same time, and we all passed. And so she was all excited. She didn't grow up hunting or anything like that. So when we were up on top of that hill, me and Dad were laying down, and Karen had binoculars, and she was getting pretty excited, and we were looking at the deer. Me and Dad were talking back and forth, kind of whispering and all that good stuff. And, I can't remember if my deer was in that herd or if we were looking at a smaller one. I want to say we were looking at a smaller one because Karen ended up kind of sitting up because you couldn't quite see over the hill. And so she kind of stood up with the binoculars and she started kind of talking a little bit loud, and she was all excited and whatever, She goes, I can't see him, or where is he? Or she said something. Then it kind of got a couple of deer's attention, and it wouldn't have been too bad, but there was like 30 deer there. So as soon as she started kind of talking a little loud, and then the wind kind of blew too, it was a couple of things that didn't quite work in our favor. You had like 30 deer heads that were all sitting there eating. They all picked up their heads and just went whoop and just stared right at us. And as soon as that happened, we're like, oh, well, we're busted. So the deer started walking away from us at an angle. And so we knew that the road, if we went back on the road, hang a right going towards the plant, hang another right, we can go into this side road where there's a bunch of other little wells and stuff like that in there. So we climbed off our little hill there, little mound, whatever it was, 10 feet high kind of a thing. And we get back into the truck. We go up, start going back towards the plant, hang a right. And we parked the truck at the one little I think it might have been a test satellite there, but anyway, that don't matter. And we end up walking just at an angle straight towards the deer to a fence. And I think that's when my deer kind of came out, jumped the fence, and started walking towards the does and started to kind of push the other deer, like the other bucks, off. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. It's been a while, so my memory's a little shady. But anyways, we see this giant deer that comes walking out, and now I went from like, I don't even know how you go from extremely excited to like the next level up. I went from a 10 out of 10 to like an 11 out of 10. You know, you should see this like Bambi's dad walking out towards you kind of a thing. And so dad takes his gun off his shoulder, hands it to me, gives me the bullets, and it's a Weatherby Mark 5. I think it was a all-weather AccuBrake, all that good stuff. Or no, maybe, no, it didn't have a muzzle brake. I lied to you there. But great big long 26-inch barrel, heavy gun. And for me at the time, I've always, it took me a long time for me to grow. So I'm like 4 foot nothing, holding on to this gun that feels like a cannon. And it's a 7mm Weatherby. And I put it up on top of a fence post, and I'm sitting there like on my tippy toes, and I can just barely see this deer. And he starts to kind of gather everything up, and he starts to walk back towards the fence line, and he kind of turns, and he was getting close. So I don't know if I got panicky or what, but I said, well, this is the only shot I got. So I took a shot, and with me being up on my tippy toes and also shooting a 7mm Weatherby, being 10 years old, 4 foot nothing, I pulled the trigger, and the kick kind of kicked me off my tippy toes, and I took a couple of steps back, and I look around. Did I get him? And at the time, too, when you look, none of the deer kind of scurried off, and I couldn't see my buck anymore. So I thought I must have missed, and he jumped that fence, and he was gone. Well, it turns out I shot pretty high, and I clipped him in the spine, and it just kind of broke his spine. And so he was sitting there, with a broken spine. Their back legs kind of quit working, but he could still use his front legs. So he was slowly crawling towards that fence. So dad said, give me the gun. So he put another one in him. Not too sure where he shot him. I'm assuming the neck. And so down goes the deer. And we're all excited, and I'm happy as hell, and, just tickled pink. And now it's time to get to work. So we end up walking out there, grab the deer, we're looking over it, celebrating, take a couple of pictures or whatever. And dad starts to gutting this thing. And I can't remember, he must have been in like a slight little incline or something. But once we skinned him down and opened him up and got everything ready to pull the guts out, dad grabbed him by his head or his front shoulders kind of a thing, and kind of picked him up, and then that way everything can kind of slide out. But when the guts kind of came out, you get that little pool of blood, and for whatever reason, I didn't want to scoop it out. I don't know if I was still pumped up that I got my deer, and dad being just all business kind of a thing. It was, Kate, deer's done. It's time to get this thing gutted and start getting him cooled. Like, there's no time to celebrate. We'll celebrate when he's in the truck kind of a thing. But maybe it was that. Maybe I was a little skittish or something. I don't know. But dad's sitting here. He's holding this deer up. Everything's open. The guts are out. And we just got to scoop the last little bit of blood that pools up inside the bottom of the rib cage out. And I was just like swatting at it, kind of like a cat swats at like a couch kind of a thing. And dad, he's sitting there, he starts yelling at me, he goes, hurry up, get her done. And okay. And I start, doggy paddling pretty well. And I finally did eventually get it all scooped out and all that. But yeah, they still tease me about that to this day, especially when I was younger. Little side story. Uh, it was just before school started, and I don't know how old I was. I must have been maybe 6 or something like that. But mom just went out and bought us all new school clothes, new shoes, new shirts, pants, what you do with kids, right? When they're getting ready to go back to school. And dad took us out to shoot some chickens. Well, for whatever reason, I was wearing all my new school clothes. And after we shot a couple of chickens, I wanted to help dad clean chickens. And he said, "No, you're not going to help me you're not going to help me clean up these chickens. You'll get bloody and dirty and whatever. And, I'll just do it." Well, when we got home, I ratted my dad out because I came running into the house, bawling my eyes out. And mom was like, "Oh my God, Shane, what did you do to your kid?" He goes, "I don't know." And I looked at my mom, just tears rolling down my face, just crying like a baby, basically. And I said, "Dad wouldn't let me get bloody." So I went from that to I don't want to touch the blood. So something in between A and B there, something went wrong. But anyways, we end up getting the deer into the truck and got them all skinned out and everything like that. And I'll put up a picture, I don't know, somewhere here. I got the green screen on, so I can just kind of, right there, I'll put the deer up. And it's a really nice, a 5x4 mule deer. Nice, wide, real tall. But we ended up getting them into the truck, and we took him to the Charlie Lake Butcher when he was still open. I think there's a post office there now. But, being a kid, and at the time, I think the deal was dad would pay for the core course, the hunting license, the tag, and all that good stuff, as long as mom paid for the butchering cost. So, whatever, mom and dad, they were divorced at the time and all that, all that jazz. But going in, being a kid, I had no idea how much meat you got off of a deer. To me, it was like a cow or something. I don't know. Meat is meat, and I got a deer, and I'm gonna, get some meat out of the deal. So we're in the butcher shop, and back then it was like I think 98 cents a pound, or maybe $1 a pound for a wild game to get butchered up. And typical butcher, good job, nice deer, whatever. What do you want made with it? And me being a kid, not having a clue, and also dad just being like, "Hey, I'm not paying for it." They gave me free reign. And giving giving the kid free range of what he wants done with his deer is a very bad idea, unless you want a ton of pepperoni and jerky, because that's what I got. The butcher just said, "Well, what do you like? What do you want?" And being a kid, well, I love jerky. I love pepperoni. Let's get a bunch of that made up. I said, "How much?" I said, "I don't know. What's the, how much can I get?" He goes, "Well, the minimum is 30 pounds each." Well, might as well get 30 or 60 pounds of it. I don't know. To me, the deer was 500-600 pounds, even though it wasn't. It might have been 140-ish, 160 kind of a thing, just a big mule deer. But so the butcher was like, "Okay, so 30 pounds of jerky, 30 pounds of pepperoni," and I think I might have even got smokies done too. And then we got some minute steaks done up. And then I said roast and hamburger, like pretty well. He gave me a list, and I just said yes. Like there was no, I don't want that, except for maybe stew meat. But like everything, I was like, yeah, I want it all. My first deer, I'm excited. I love jerky. I love pepperoni. And, usually there's like a minimum requirement for when it comes to jerky and pepperoni. Typically it's like 30 pounds. And when you start to get into those kinds of things too, your butchering prices, they go from like a buck a pound to like $4 to $6 a pound. And I didn't know. I was just, I want jerky. I want pepperoni. What do you want from me? I'm, I'm just a kid, and Dad was like, I'm not paying for it. So yeah, if the kid wants pepperoni, his mom said she'll pay for it. So I, I don't remember the exact cost of it when we went and picked it up, but I know Mom was not happy. Uh, I also know that we were eating. Well, the jerky went by quick. Maybe we only got like 30 pounds of jerky, but the pepperoni, we were eating mule deer pepperoni for like, I kid you not, like a year. And it wasn't just like a piece here and there. Like me and my brother would take it for lunch. We'd eat it after school. We'd eat it on the weekends. We would eat it before going to bed. Like we were constantly eating this mule deer pepperoni, and like our freezer was full of it. So I mean, that deer probably cost my mom like $300 or $400 to get butchered up, and like 90% of that cost was just pepperoni and jerky, mainly pepperoni. It was so expensive. One thing that was doesn't really suck, but I don't know what the word is for it. But we never really grew up like keeping horns and stuff like that. I think my dad's horns, I got those from his moose, but other than that, and a cinnamon bear that he shot, and his really big mule deer that he got, we were never a family to kind of keep horns and all that. With my mule deer, we did cut the horns off and we did keep it, but it was never really like ingrained in us like this is a trophy deer, like this is something that you need to hold on to and cherish. And I had the horns for the longest time. These, I have cheap little like stack on gun safes, and I always had one in my room with my one rifle in it, and I had the horns sitting up on top of that. I remember one day the horns fell off and they hit the ground, and the skull split. So, and I just had like pretty well two horns, and it was like, whatever. They're, in my mind, it was like just horns. So it was, whatever. Yeah, it wasn't a big deal. And then I think eventually my dog ended up chewing on one of the horns or something because they fell off again. I can't remember how the dog got a hold of the horns, but the dog ended up eating them. But again, at that time, it was like they're horns. Like we were never like, oh, you need to keep that. Like that's a nice deer. And it was kind of the same thing when I got a really big moose. It was still in velvet, and I should have peeled the velvet off and kept it, or took it to a taxidermist and got them to inject it with the formaldehyde or whatever it is that they use. But we never really kept horns. You got a picture that's good enough, kind of a thing, is how we kind of grew up. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't have those horns. I think if I did, I would 100% go to a taxidermist and get it mounted. Just get I don't know, whatever, shoot another mule deer and use that cape for it, kind of a thing. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the horns. But what I do have is pictures of it, and some pretty good memories and some laughs that we can all laugh at now. But yeah, that's my story of my first mule deer that I shot, and it put in motion something a lot bigger than what I thought. Growing up, like I said, I never really cared about school. When people asked me what I'm gonna do when I grow up, for a little bit I said doctor or paramedic, and yeah, maybe a conservation officer. And then I went, you know what? I kind of want a job where I get to use a gun. You know what I mean? Like I get to pack a rifle. So, and I thought maybe military, police, guiding, and now the path that I'm on, hopefully someday soon, it'll be just kind of YouTube, really. But yeah, uh, just the memories of getting your first deer or your first big game animal, it's something that will it definitely gets cemented into your mind. And I'm sure I can talk on behalf of the majority of people watching and listening to this that they definitely remember where they were, what they used, and what they got. For me, it was November. It was a warm day, very little snow. Uh, Used a Mark V Weatherby, the 7mm Weatherby Magnum with a Leupold scope on it, and the rest is history. Now we're here, now making a podcast about it, and making other hunting videos about shooting other animals and stuff, and it it sure is amazing where a guy has started and where it leads him to. And for me, man, hunting, fishing, and being in the outdoors, if you're not doing it, you're not living right, But that's my story. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you're listening to this, give me a rating. Let me know how you liked it. Head over to YouTube to watch it and also to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And who knows, maybe one day we'll see you out there in the woods. Catch you on the next one.